What's up, everybody? Welcome to SLC Puck. What a thrill, a delight. This is episode 35 here, the year 2024, August 25th. It's a thrill to be here with you guys. I'm fired up. We're inching towards some big dates. Things are ramping up. I know this last month here in August has been a little boring, a little slow. I know that for a fact because the view count reflects that. I think the interest is maybe dipping a little bit. But, you know, it was kind of interesting. I was watching The Hockey Guy. It's a great YouTube channel. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with The Hockey Guy. And he did an entire episode about how boring the episode of August can be, or the month of August can be for hockey fans, and how he's seen his own channel like have a big dip in viewership, and that made me feel better. I'm like, oh, if like the biggest hockey YouTuber in the world like is having issues, I think I can be at peace with my view count as well. But hey, if you're here, I'm happy you're here. I'm Austin Facer. You're listening to SLC Puck. The big dates I'm referring to that are coming up: rookie face-off in LA, rookie team. The first time we'll see a team representing the Utah Hockey Club on the ice. That's going to be September 13th, looks like. And then from there, preseason kicks off. The Utah Hockey Club will play their first game ever in Iowa for some reason. I talked about this on a previous episode. On September 22nd, they'll be back here to play the Kings on September 23rd. And then October 8th is the big one, the regular season home opener. And, of course, lots of excitement going on at the Grizzlies as well. I got to give the Grizzlies some love. Hopefully I have more to talk about concerning the Grizzlies soon. But what I know you guys have really been looking forward to this, so I'll tell you all about it. We've got new stuff in the merch shop, slcpuck.shop. And let me just show you. It's this brilliantly designed hat. It's called the Upside Down Hat. I came up with that name all by myself. You can see it has SLC Puck written in upside down arching letters here. It's in style, I promise. I've seen these kinds of hats all over the place. I'm selling it for basically cost here, so go ahead and pick yourself up one of these. It's funny, I listed this online and just threw the link up on Twitter, and within 5 minutes, someone bought the hat. I'm like, oh, maybe it must be a good-looking hat. Must be something people like. So I have a sample coming on the way. That'll be the hat I'll wear here on the show moving forward. But you can probably see as well, if you're enjoying my attire, I know I get a lot of compliments on how well-dressed I am for the show. I'm wearing a Clean Hits podcast shirt, and I love the Clean Hits guys. I was on their show the other day. Those guys do a great job. And they had a really terrific interview with Steve Konowalchuk. And I'm bad at pronouncing names. I should know that one. But Steve Konowalchuk was on their show last week, and if that name rings a bell to you, mispronounced or not, it's because Steve has the distinction of being the first player ever born and raised to make it to the National Hockey League. So I thought that was a great get by those guys down in Arizona to do stuff that they think everybody here in Utah would like, and that got me thinking. I was like, you know what? I think here we're in the doldrums of August still, right at the end. We should talk a little bit about the Utahns who have played in the NHL. We've kind of been talking about hockey history, all that kind of good stuff here on SLC Puck. It's worthwhile to talk about the Utahns who have made it to the bigs, and it's not a long list. We can cover all of them today, and that's the plan. And I'll just jump right into it here. And I say it's a long list because depending on your criteria, it's either 3 or 5 Utahns who have played in the NHL. Now, according to quanthockey.com, they list 5 players born in Utah who have played in the NHL. I have decided, though, we're not going to talk about 2 of them. We're not going to talk about Dylan Olsen or Richard Batchman because they were born here. But from what I could tell, just doing a little bit of digging on them, a little bit of research, they didn't really grow up here. They spent most of their life outside of the state, even though they were born here. So we're not going to talk about them. We're going to focus on the 3 big ones here. Steve Konowalchuk being one. Trevor Lewis of the Los Angeles Kings. I've mentioned him on the show before. He's the second. And then the third is someone that I don't have good feelings for, and I'll get into why. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, kind of joking, but kind of not. And it's Daniel Brickley. And I've talked about his uncle, Andy Brickley, on the show as well. But let's just dive right in again. I would check out the Clean Hits podcast, their interview with Steve Konowalchuk. Awesome stuff. And it was fun because I love listening to Steve talk, because I actually had the opportunity to interview Steve when I worked at ABC4. And again, I love sharing my old journalism, war stories. When I worked at ABC4, they really let me write about pretty much whatever I wanted to. So I ended up writing a lot about like dinosaurs and, what were some of the, and like fast food and hockey. Those were kind of my three main beats at ABC4. So I've talked about some of the other hockey stories I've done, but this one where I interviewed Steve Konowalchuk was a lot of fun. And the thing that's funny about Steve is he has like a really unique accent. He doesn't sound like a typical Utahn. And I talk about this in the story I wrote back in 2021, where his accent is kind of like an amalgam of like different regions from all over the world. It's like a little Canadian, a little bit of European, a little bit of like East Coast. And I think that just like speaks to Steve's hockey story. Like he was born and raised here for the most part, like especially in his formative years. But at 15, he moved back to Canada to play for the Prince Albert Midget Raiders. That's a huge like junior level team. And that was instrumental in getting him into the NHL. He wouldn't have made it to the NHL had he stayed in Utah during those formative hockey teenage years. But yeah, so that it was again funny to listen to Steve talk. He does not talk like your typical Utahn. That's me at Daniel Brickley. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But just to listen to Steve talk was fun. And I'll just go over Steve's career a little bit in case you're not familiar with him. You might be. But Steve played nearly 800 games in the NHL over about 15 seasons. He had 171 goals, 225 assists for a grand total. Thank you, calculator app on my phone, for helping me figure this out. 396 points. Again, was the first player born and raised in Utah to play in the NHL. Was drafted by the Washington Capitals in the third round of the 1991 NHL draft, and that's where he spent the majority of his career. He played with the Capitals until the 2003 season when he was traded to Colorado in the offseason. He ended up playing 2 more years for the Avalanche, so kind of close to home a little bit. But he was kind of like a very stable sort of presence for the Capitals. Was the captain of the team for a little bit. So it's kind of fun. If you go to the Utah Sports Hall of Fame Museum at City Creek, he was a recent inductee into the Sports Hall of Fame. I think this either last year or the year before, and I know that because I help out at the Utah Sports Hall of Fame quite a bit. But he was an inductee, and so now he has he donated one of his Capitals jerseys to the Hall of Fame, so you can go see it. It's hung up real nice in the rafters, has the C on it and everything. Really cool. But since then, since his playing days ended, his career ended because he had an irregular heartbeat or something like that. But after he retired from playing, he's gone into coaching. He's coached in the Western Hockey League, minor league, junior level for the Seattle Thunderbirds. And then he was an assistant with the Anaheim Ducks in the NHL for a year. That didn't pan out. He was only there for a year. Then he worked as a scout for the New York Rangers for a couple of years, went back to the WHL to coach the Red Deer Rebels. And now just this year it was announced that he'll be coaching in the American Hockey League. So he's been moving up the chain in the coaching ranks, so to speak. He'll be the head coach of the Springfield Thunderbirds, who are the AHL affiliate of the St. Louis Blues. So Steve's working his way up the coaching ladder. And who knows, maybe one day we'll see him coach again in the NHL. Maybe one day he'll be the head coach of the Utah Yeti. Wouldn't that be kind of fun? But yeah, I mean, I encourage you guys, just for one, because I'm vain a little bit and I want my stories to be read. I think you'll find the story on Steve's hockey upbringing kind of interesting. And again, I'll just go over some quick bullet points. So yeah, he had to move to Saskatchewan. His dad was a Canadian guy who loved hockey. And there's this funny story that Steve told me how his dad would take them to Golden Eagles games back in the day and bring Steve's skates with them so that and then push him onto the ice, so he could get a little precious ice time in. And that's like the 70s, 80s. So, things were a lot more chill then. The security was like, all right, fine, just let him skate. That's how I imagine that story anyway. But anyway, it was revisiting the story was kind of fun because it was back in 2021 when I talked to Steve. And I remember asking him, I'm like, so how does the state rank in terms of hockey? And he's like, well, we're a little behind because we don't have an NHL team. And I would love to maybe get in touch with Steve somehow If anybody here knows how to get a hold of Steve, I guess I could reach out to the Thunderbirds. But I think it would be fun to see how far we've come since then in the last 3 years, because as I'm sure Steve has heard, we now have an NHL team in Utah. So I think we'll see the caliber of play pick up, and I think eventually we'll see a lot more guys from Utah play in the National Hockey League. That's kind of been a theory that I have, something that we'll see maybe even as like the Olympics ramp up to 2034 and all that. So again, it was cool to see Steve on the Clean Hits podcast. Those guys did a great job. But let's jump to the second member of the Utah in the NHL group. Again, I'm only considering these three to be the main ones. Trevor Lewis. And Trevor has the distinction of having played in more NHL games than Steve Konowalchuk. He spent more time in the NHL than any other Utahn. And he also holds the distinction of being the first and only Utahn to be drafted in the first round of the NHL draft. He was drafted 17th overall in 2006 by the Los Angeles Kings. And he sort of has a similar story to Steve, where he had to move outside of the state to get up to the NHL, scouting level, get his play up. He moved to Colorado to play for the Pikes Peaks Miners, I think they're called, the AAA level at 14. He eventually made his NHL debut in 2008 and has been known for the most part as like an unsung hero. That's the title he's won with the Kings quite a bit. I think he has a reputation for doing the dirty work. He's a great forechecker. Not necessarily like a goal scorer. I don't think he's ever scored more than like 10 or so goals in a season. But he's willing to do the dirty work. His teammates appreciate it. And that's why he's stayed in the NHL for, almost 20 years now. And, majority of the time has been spent with the Kings. They had some great teams there in the late 2010s and all that. They won a couple of Stanley Cups. But he played a year with the Jets as well after his first stint with the Kings, and then 2 years with the Flames, and then re-signed for a second stint with the Kings before last season, and just signed another 1-year deal this summer. And again, I said this on an earlier episode when he was up for free agency this year, and I really wanted the Utah Hockey Club to sign him. I thought that would have been a great, for one, publicity move, and two, I think he could have filled a need in the locker room. Had a veteran presence that this young team probably desperately needed. Didn't happen. I don't know. He's going to play one more year at the Kings. And here's what's impressive about Trevor. He's 37 years old right now, but he's found a way to stay like really healthy and stay in the lineup. He's only missed 2 games the last 3 years, including the last 2 seasons he's played all 82, which at that age is like really impressive. So you kind of feel like the mileage is sort of adding up on him. Like he might hang it up after the season. If he decides to come back for one last one, a swan song at 38, I'm telling GM Bill Armstrong, who I have a man crush on. I've talked about this on the show as well. Bring Trevor home to finish his career in Utah, and I will love you more than I thought I thought possible. I already love you so much, Bill Armstrong. Do this for me, and I'll love you. I'll find a way to love you even more. But here's what's cool about Trevor. I mentioned he was on a couple of Stanley Cup winning teams. Trevor is one of the I think he's the only one, obviously, who has brought the Stanley Cup back to Salt Lake City. And I had the picture pulled up here. I had such a well-produced, formulated show for you guys. Hold on. I know the clock is ticking right now. Oh, here's what I can show you in the meantime. This is going to be a nice little throwback to younger days. You get a look at younger Austin here. That's me about, I think I was 19. I think this is right before I left on my mission. And Trevor happened to be in town skating. This is at the Steiner ice rink, as you could probably tell. And he was there to announce something. And my dad, who was president of the high school hockey league at the time, still, even after I had graduated, it was like, oh, you got to come down. You get your skates and skate with Trevor Lewis. And so this is me. I got my skates on. I got, t-shirt, whatever. But skating around with Trevor Lewis. Oh, that was a lot of fun. That was a really cool memory. So that's me and Trevor Lewis there for you. And again, enjoy this. And let me just zoom in so you can enjoy, a look at 19-year-old Austin. Oh, it's not letting me zoom in. Try it. Just enjoy what younger Austin looked like. Okay, this is me clean shaven. You're never going to see me clean shaven as from henceforth. Sorry, it's just not going to happen. So enjoy that while you can. But anyway, so that's fun. And again, here's my notes. Look at this. Okay, cool. So, but let's move into the most recent Utahn who's played in the NHL. And I said this at the top of the show. He's a guy I don't have good feelings for. And I say that with like my tongue in cheek, with like a lot of love. I don't know Daniel Brickley at all, but the thing I know about Daniel is that he was instrumental in preventing me from not enjoying a state championship my senior year, because Daniel played for Skyline, and back in 2010, the Viewmont Vikings and the Skyline Eagles were pitted together in a state championship bout, and we lost the first game of the double elimination tournament to the Eagles. Look, and I got this great picture here from the it's got a little bit of paint on it, so forgive me. But this is me playing in the state championship game against Skyline, the very same team Daniel Brickley was on. That's not Daniel, by the way, but that's just someone else on the team. But yeah, so we were pitted against Skyline. The game went to overtime, deciding game, and then freaking Dean Wilson. I'll never forget that name either. And I would love to get Dean on the show so I can gripe about this with him. Got past our defenders, put a nice shot on net. It hit the top of Tyler Wolfley's glove and then rolled into the net, and there went the state championship to Daniel Brickley, who then went on to play in the NHL. You know, that could have been me in the NHL had Viewmont won the state championship this year. But if the Brickley name sounds like familiar, it's because I have talked about it on the show. And again, if you're a hockey guy in Utah, you know the Brickley name very well. They're like the first family of hockey in Utah. Andy Brickley was a longtime professional hockey player. Played with the Grizzlies at the end of his career. Was a part of the championship team that I've talked about this on the show that came into Utah in a big way in 1996. After his playing days, he became a color analyst. He's been on TV for the Boston Bruins. But anyway, Daniel has followed in his footsteps and been a great professional player as well. But his career has been not nearly as successful as Steve and Trevor's careers. He played at the junior level after beating Viewmont's ass in the state championship. And then he went to Minnesota State, was a college star at the NCAA level. I believe he was a second-team All-American. And then he signed as a free agent with the Kings. And that's probably because I've heard he and Trevor Lewis's family were really tight growing up, which makes sense. The hockey community is very incestuous here in Utah. We all know each other very well, I think. I would like to think some people remember me and my dad, from our hockey days. But anyway, those families are really tight, and I think that was a big role in Daniel signing with the Kings. But also, interesting note, Will Ferrell had a big role in helping him sign with the Kings. Will Ferrell's been a noted Kings fan, and when Daniel was in the process of signing as a free agent being courted by several teams, the Kings put together a nice little video featuring Will Ferrell begging him to sign with the team. And I don't know. I would find that very convincing if I was up to looking for a team to sign with. So I thought that was a funny note there. And Daniel made his debut in the NHL in 2017, 7 years after downing the Viewmont Vikings in one of the most hotly contested Utah State high school championship games ever. He scored a point in his first game, which was kind of cool, just an assist on a goal, but only played in 4 more games since then. He's kind of been bogged down by injuries, so he spent a lot of time in the American Hockey League, the East Coast Hockey League as well. He now plays in Sweden, and again, we're kind of around the same age. I think he's a year younger than me. He's 31. So you kind of wonder if like the clock has run out for his ability to play in the NHL again. But I kind of wonder if he'll be a training camp invite for the Utah Hockey Club, just sort of like you see teams do this from time to time just to get some goodwill in the community and all that. And he might fill a role for the team. He's a defenseman. That's something that the organization needs to build some depth at. So it could be interesting. Maybe we'll see Daniel give it another shot, and maybe he'll suit up for the Allen Americans next year. Maybe the Tucson Roadrunners. I don't know. I think that could be kind of interesting to keep an eye on. So we'll see how that goes. Training camp's coming up soon. I was trying to find the date for that, and I'm not sure when it is, but it feels like it should be somewhat soon. If you guys happen to know, let me know. Sound off in the comments. But anyway, yeah, I just thought, let me just show you another picture. We're kind of playing, the game 6 Degrees Kevin Bacon. We're playing the same game, 6 Degrees to Utahns in the NHL, and I just have 1 degree because I've kind of met all these guys. And this is me back in 2018 when Daniel was here at the Kings. They were playing in the Frozen Fury at the Delta Center, and I was in the locker room working here doing a story. And I was just chatting with him about that championship game back in 2010. And anyway, I was griping and commiserating with him about that. Nice guy. I definitely remember that. And again, here's a look. This is kind of a fun episode because not only has it been educational, where you've learned about Utahns in the NHL, you've also seen me in different eras too. You saw clean-shaven, very skinny Austin, and now in this picture you see bearded, kind of tubby Austin. So, and now you get to enjoy me, which is sort of my final form, and I think my best yet. So I wish I could go back and play in the 2010 state championship game with the commitment to fitness I have now. So maybe it'd be different. You're lucky, Daniel Brickey. You're lucky you didn't deal with this in 2010. Anyway, so kind of a fun episode. Just wanted to get you guys through that. Again, we were talking Utah's hockey history, Utah's hockey culture, and seeing the Clean Hits podcast made me think about that. So that was a lot of fun, and it kind of brings me to how I wanted to end the show today. And it's gonna sound like I'm mad at people, like I'm like putting my foot down. I am a little bit, but I just want to ask you guys a quick favor. And this is just something I've noticed in the comments on YouTube and a little bit on Facebook, is I would just ask you guys, if you're going to bring up like other podcasts about the Utah Hockey Club, about hockey here in Utah, speak kindly of them in my comments. I have not asked you guys to compare me with any of the other podcasts. I have not asked you to rate me as your favorite or your best. If you like me, you like me. That's great. I have really enjoyed the very positive reception you guys have given me. I have also noticed that some of you have chosen to make comments on your opinion on the other shows. And if it's not kind and nice, I'm just going to ask you to not make those comments. Here's what we should be thinking about as the SLC Puck community. We want to be the coolest, the kindest community in the Utah hockey community. And doing that kind of stuff is just not like what I appreciate or want to see. So don't do it. Moving forward, if you comment negatively about other podcasts, I'm just going to delete your comment. If you're a repeat offender, I'll find a way to block you, I guess. I don't know if you can do that on YouTube, but I'm just going to ask you guys to not do that. And that's just kind of how I want to end the show. But again, I really appreciate your guys' support. It's been a lot of fun. Again, I got a cool new hat on slcpuck.shop. Got a lot of things in the works here. You can follow me on social media at SLC Puck on all the platforms. You guys rock. We're getting close. It's almost game time. Get your drink. Get hydrated. Do it. This has Celsius in it, an energy drink, but it looks like water. But get ready. Get fired up. September's coming in a big way. I'm excited about it, and we'll talk soon. We'll see you guys.